What's going on, everybody? It's your boy Shuki from Shakara's Media, and today we're taking a look at The Walking Dead Saints and Sinners Chapter 2 Retribution. This is the new Walking Dead VR game, a sequel to a highly enjoyable game, Saints and Sinners from 2020. It's one of my favorite VR games ever made, and as a Walking Dead fan, of course, I'm highly satisfied to have a great Walking Dead game. So it's a really fun game, and the sequel I'm really looking forward to. And we're going to react to this review from IGN because since I can't play it yet, we're going to take a little bit of information from the article and see what we can learn about the game. I don't want any spoilers, so I'm not watching too many gameplay videos or anything like that. I want to keep the experience raw for myself, but we're going to get some information from this review here. And there's apparently some issues with the Quest version. They are saying that it's not running well, that it has a lot of performance issues. So I find that really unfortunate since I enjoy this game so much. I anticipate this game being good. I actually would be surprised if it's not. The fact that there are performance issues on the platform that it launched on first is a huge issue because this negative review score, I won't show it yet, but this review score is going to stand the test of time. Now, will they re-review it when it's released on other platforms? Maybe, but still. When people search for reviews on their favorite search engine, this is probably going to pop up. So it wasn't too smart of them to release the version that performs the worst first. And this is true of the Quest version of the previous game. You see, they did not release that game at the same time on Quest. They actually had to build a whole tourist version that was stripped down. It had less in the way of graphics. I mean, look at how pixelated these graphics are. Now, keep in mind, you will, in VR, see more pixelated graphics than you will in a flat screen game, just because it takes a lot more processing power to render games in a 3D environment than it does on a flat screen. So you got to keep in mind that it's always going to look a little bit pixelated. But these frame dips and the jankiness of the frame rate and you know, how pixelated everything is, I think that this is the sign that the Quest 2 was really just not capable of a game that's trying to be a bit more detailed. I mean, look at how cartoonish and terrible. I mean, this obviously looks worse than the first game on my computer right now. I can tell you that right now. If I boot up Saints and Sinners 1, I got the headset over there. If I plug that in, it's going to look better than this looks right now. So I know for a fact that this game will be better when I play it on Steam. So I'm a little bit disappointed that Skybound Interactive made the deal with Facebook, but you know what? At the end of the day, they really do probably need that extra budget for this game. But I'm seeing a lot of familiar sights. We got the backpack, we got familiar weapons, we got the same interface, the way everything looks. Now, of course, this is a game coming out just a mere, I suppose, 3 years, more like 2.5 or something, 3 years after the first one. So it's not going to be like night and day difference. But I do think that it's going to be like a familiar glove. You know, I'm very much looking forward to it. But let's take a look at some of the review. And they're saying it makes it for a jarring experience because of how jittery the frame rate is and how many game-breaking bugs it says. So I'm a little concerned about the game-breaking bugs as well, because that might not be platform-specific, you know. It might be an issue that plagues my platform as well. So again, we're returning to New Orleans. The first one took place in New Orleans. We're playing the same character. This one takes place after the original. So I think that's interesting. We get a few you know, customization options, same as before. You get to pick your skin tone and you male or female, and that's about it as far as character creation. But you don't see your character anyway, although you do see the skin tone. That's why it asks, because you see your hands and stuff. So that's definitely, you know, nothing new there. So I think that the main focus here, according to this person, the big difference between this game and the previous one is that this one is even more action-packed. You know, we can take a look at some of these screenshots here. We'll get back to those actually, because we have some things to say. But they're saying it's going to be more combat focused. There's a lot more of action here than in the original. It's a bit odd for the wave survival mode to be missing here. There's no wave survival mode. That's kind of a shame. But you think they added that as a DLC, free DLC previously, so they could add something similar down the line. But yeah, so apparently it's a much more in your face. They said, whereas the first game focused on stealth by forcing you to slowly navigate a world sparse of resources, necessarily to fight the gradually overwhelming horde of walkers and humans. Chapter 2 goes all out with its combat, practically throwing weapons and other important resources at you from the very first steps out of the opening area. Now, I wonder if this is just the natural progression of the game, that, you know, we had a bit more of a suspenseful, paced out experience before, and now we're getting a more action-oriented thing. Is that a product of feedback from the audience? Maybe people got bored with the game because there wasn't enough killing in it. Maybe people were getting frustrated by not being able to find the resources that they need. I like those aspects of the game, the resource aspect, the stealth aspect. I actually had a lot more fun with the game when I stopped trying to sneak up on the humans and just taking them on. But I like the idea that there's going to be more action. I'm a little worried that they're skimping out on some of the better parts of the game, but you know what? I think you could have an action-oriented experience make the crafting even better. It's more important. So here we go. The loss of a gradual progression from being basically no resources to being a powerhouse does lose some of the game's original nuance. I don't know that I like that. Weapons feel slightly less valuable or early on, lessening a bit of tension that once existed in regard to inventory management. But with more loot readily available, you don't need to scavenge with a fine-tooth comb anymore either. Okay. I'm mixed. If the action is fun, if it makes for better gameplay, I'm cool with it. Otherwise, I don't know. We'll have to see how it plays. It's going to be a different balance. It still feels scary since the quantity and aggression of walkers has been turned up a notch to accommodate. So there's going to be more enemies. Let's take a look at these screenshots before we continue on. Of course, you could probably watch full playthroughs of the game, but I don't want any spoilers. We're just looking for hints here. This is the same interface that we had before with a little notebook that has your missions in it. This first tab has your task list. The second tab has your active mission. Third tab had your character stats, I believe. And this fourth one is the map. These three on the right-hand side are new to my knowledge, so I'm curious what those are. And you can see the pixelated look that this game has. We get dialogue options. I forget if we had dialogue options in the last one. I think we might have. Ooh, laser weapon. I like it. So the graphics of this game, it does look pretty bad, I have to say. But I don't think it's too dissimilar from how it looked on the Quest. The first game looked on the Quest. So, you know, maybe we will see. It's satisfying to watch walkers split in half when the frame rate doesn't completely screech to a halt. So again, the frame rate is apparently a huge issue on the Quest 2, so maybe wait for other platforms. Yeah, so there's, yeah, and they're saying it requires, the chainsaw requires both hands to use. So when the frame rate screeches to a halt, you kind of lose your place of where your hands are supposed to be, because the hands both need to be in the right spot for you to hit with your targets, right? So that's an interesting point there, that when the frame rate stutters, you might lose your place. So I'm really interested in what new weapons we have. The increased action also makes it fortunate that the Saints and Sinners still offers the most entertaining melee combat of any VR game short of Blade and Sorcery. I do agree with that, especially because you can grab the enemies and chink them in the head, you can slice them off, you can decapitate them, you can even, I believe you can slice off their arms, but don't quote me on that. That would be cool. Oh, we get the katana, Michonne's katana. I'm loving that. Beheading walkers. My favorite melee weapon, you could, with a single-handed weapon, actually decapitate them, which is a fun thing to do, and is in some ways actually easier than just killing them outright normally. So let's see what else we got here. So there's a lot of enemies on screen, more than there were before, so it's straining the Quest 2's hardware. I wonder if there's even going to be more enemies for me than this reviewer, because maybe they took away some enemies for the quest too, even though it's not performing well. In some extreme cases, Chapter 2 begins to experience frequent crashes and other glitches that might just make the whole thing less palatable across the board. That's really unfortunate. Now, this might be yet another Unreal Engine game that is not properly optimized. We've had that recently with the Callisto Protocol and other similar games, but the first game ran just fine for me anyway, so I don't know, it's hard to say. One section of the campaign crashed 7 times in a row. Yikes. Forcing me to lose 20 minutes of progress each time. Double yikes. Till I went back to the home camp and threw every loose physics item into the storage bin. Wow. Okay, so he took all the items in the environment away, and that made the crashes stop. So it's crashing because there are too many items for the CPU in the Quest 2 to keep track of. It's kind of funny. It's impossible to know if that was the main culprit, but by the end of that particular section, I was banging my head against the wall looking for solutions. I would bet, especially if it was my job to... I mean, if it was not my job, I could just refund the Steam, right? As should be expected, there are a few new zones and a handful of new weapons to play with, but Chapter 2 is still filled with way too much content from the original game. Okay, so they're saying there's a lot of repeat stuff. Most of the time, you'll be running back through old zones. Ooh, that's it. That's a yikes. So we got this, not just like the same guns and some of the same art style and all that, but we're literally in some of the same levels. I don't like the sound of it. Most of the time too. He says most of the time we'll be going through familiar zones. So it's more like DLC than a full game, it sounds like. A few of these locales don't even serve any story purpose this time around, and it feels odd that you can still visit them at all, like some vestigial organ hanging off of an aging corpse. Yeah, no, that's a good metaphor for that, considering the zombie genre and everything. That's really weird. So they just left these levels in there. Presumably there's stuff to collect there, and there's enemies, but if there's no story quest, maybe there's side quest there. If it really is just you can visit there just to collect stuff, why would they do that? I guess just to say they have more content, right? Wow, that's crazy. Okay, please be warned, however, that Chapter 2 does very little to explain the premise of ongoing events, aside from some expositional dialogue early on, and you might be lost if you're a first-timer. Now, the plot of the first one was not that complicated, so the fact that they have an issue catching you up with it is a little weird to me. I mean, it's just like, hey, there's this faction, and then there's this faction, and that's pretty much it. Like, what else is there to say? There was a vault, and then people fought over it. The end. Like, what even is there to catch you up on? Anyways, yeah, they gave the last one a 9, which I agree with that score. It's pretty good. It's a very good game, one of my favorites. The issue is that Chapter 2 doesn't actually feel like a new game at all. Wow. Despite a half-hearted continuation of the original story. Now, I have a review on this channel of the story of the original game and my mixed feelings about it, because a lot of the game's key events happen off-screen. You don't see a lot of it happening. It feels like the story, for the most part, is taking place in the world beyond you, the world outside. You don't get to see, you're not privy to most of it. So there's a couple key cinematic moments where you're there and it's happening, but most of the time, the story, you're just hearing about it or reading about it later. So I would like to see... The fact they're saying half-hearted continuation is a little bit of a shame to me, because I'm waiting to see a game story that's more cinematic and immersive. It carries several threads from the original to their final conclusion amidst a handful of new, albeit less interesting characters. See, that's interesting, because I didn't find any characters in the original all that interesting, so they're saying it's even less interesting? Yikes, man. Maybe this isn't going to be as good as I was hoping. But this iteration struggles to feel as consistently paced as the original in more ways than one. Ooh, yikes. None of the Chapter 2's character really make that much of an impact compared to the original's Casey, who had no interesting and nuanced motivations in the first campaign. Is this the mother of the girl that died? And this nuance and complexity he's talking about, all that happened off screen. Her kid died, And then she completely changed her entire mind. She went from being, yeah, let's try to save as many people as possible, to, I want to try to kill as many people as possible. And all that happened off screen, and you didn't get to see any of it. So I completely disagree. Unless Casey is the guy in the vault, in which case I'm not really sure what they mean. So I'm not sure who Casey is. I forget, okay? Doesn't really matter. Each of your quests also feel railroaded to a specific conclusion no matter what you do this time. I mean, the choice element was never really... It was really just window dressing before, so that's not anything new here. On several occasions, I killed an NPC to fast-track a specific mission, only to find that it broke the quest progress until I left the zone and returned. Wow. So you can break... There's ways to fix that. Bethesda Games fixes that by making it so you can't kill the NPCs that are mission-specific. That's a very simple thing to implement, and the fact that this person was able to break the game without even really trying to is kind of sad. So that's not even a performance-related Quest 2 issue. That's an actual problem. Finding the same NPC alive once more, even generating duplicates of unique Quest critical items that aren't supposed to be duplicated at all. Wow, okay, so you got doubles because they duplicated... What? I don't even understand what happened. It's all so much less polished than I remember the original being. Wow. I hope they did they rush it out the door? For what? That's crazy. At least Chapter 2 hints at its heavily armored, axe-wielding secondary antagonist pretty early on. That is true. That's something we're seeing in all the trailers. It looks like Mr. X. He's unkillable and he chases you around. That sounds like an amazing game mechanic for a game like this, especially one with a slower pace. He casts a shadow over your movements around New Orleans. However, the story does a lousy job of keeping the tension going between you two. Like Mama, the primary antagonist. Okay, so the primary antagonist operates from the tower, and then the axe-wielding guy is the secondary. Got it. So after he makes his initial introduction, he just sort of disappears, at least until you go and fight him in a middling and ultimately forgettable boss fight towards the end. I was hoping he'd be chasing you around as like Mr. X game mechanic. No, he just shows up a couple times. That's disappointing. In this case, this is one villain who won't be making it to the final season. The show's over. Does he know the show's over? Things do pick up around the very end, though, when you finally get to go on a full-fledged assault against the tower. Wow, okay, so there's an actual, like, assault mission. That's a bit of a spoiler, thank you. It's well set up. It's set up well enough, and it makes for a satisfying final send-off when it's not pushing the Quest 2 past its limit, yada yada. So, what else? Yeah, I mean, it's saying that it's got the same mechanics. The AI hasn't gotten any upgrades, which is a shame, because they're really, really dumb. They're the dumbest enemies in any game I've ever seen. Really, really stupid. So that's looking like it. I'm still looking forward to the game. I will definitely be reviewing it, so who knows if I agree with this. There's 2 new crafting stations, granting you a few more options for progression and loadout customization as you loot items and break them down into their raw resources, of course, as we talked about. We can visit zones at night. That's a new thing. We learned about that before. They're meaningfully different after dark, affecting both visibility and NPC behavior. That's cool. You can do the special night-exclusive missions for a group of survivors known as the Exile Trade Network in exchange for loot. That sounds like cool. Even though after around 15 plus hours of play, they seem like no more than fetch quests that give you basic rewards and could be comfortably ignored if you don't feel like doing them. That's disappointing. I was hoping that plot line, I mean, it sounds like it should have the best rewards in the whole game, right? Don't you think? If you're going out at night, it's tougher. You should get the best stuff. Walkers are far more numerous at night, and that sounds really cool. They move faster at night. That's interesting, because I think in the show they say it's the opposite. They move slower at night. Since you only have so much stamina, of course, that's a mechanic that, again, I'm assuming that you take damage over time. Your stamina, you need to eat to keep your stamina up all the way. It can be easy to get overwhelmed, of course. We have a bunch of weapons, yada yada. There's a limited amount of time each day to get things done. Resources become scarcer after each game day, or at least they claim they do. And they say that there's less resources and more enemies. They did this in the first game. Every time you go to sleep, they say there's more enemies and there's less resources. Whether or not that was true, I can't really confirm or deny. It didn't really seem like it was doing it like that. It seemed like it had more to do with the progression of where I was in the story versus the game day, but I could be wrong about that. Valuable loot. Yeah, we have the UV mode on the flashlight yet again, which is cool. So that's going to be fun to see, you know, hidden messages and whatnot. Largely offers more of the same, which is really all I kind of want. A few mediocre missions. That's unfortunate. That said, if you like the original, this is still one of the better zombie games you can play in the Quest 2. Okay, well, there's the review. See, they gave it a 6 out of 10. So I hope that I'm not giving it a 6 out of 10. I hope I'm giving it a better score because I'm really looking forward to it. Hopefully we won't have any performance issues. Hopefully I end up disagreeing. But we'll see. I'll review it on the channel. We'll find out together. With that, it's been your boy Shuggy. Thanks for watching, guys. Definitely stay tuned to Sugar Earth Media for more Walking Dead content. I hope to see you guys in the next one. Thanks for watching, everybody. Peace out.